Hello again, everybody. Here I am still in my kitchen. I'm going to continue my cooking adventure for the day by making choux pastry. And choux is a French word that means cabbage. So I suppose the round ones look like little cabbages. Let's look at the ingredients. We're looking at half a cup of milk and a half a cup of water. 4 ounces, which is 1 stick of unsalted butter, 1 cup of flour, 4 eggs. Now, or a dash of salt. I put in a dash of salt with the flour. Now, this is a recipe that my mother used and when she made cream puffs, and it came right from her. Let me show you this. 1950. You can see it says 1950 Betty Crocker cookbook, which is now in my possession. And you can see by how well used and loved she really got a lot of use out of it. I've used it a little bit, not as much, but it's really fun to look back at and to look at the things that she wrote for comments on some of these. So that's where we're starting at. The only thing I'm doing different is instead of 1 cup of water, I do half milk, half water. So we're going to pour that into our saucepan. And we're going to put in our 4 ounces, 1 stick of unsalted butter. And we're going to bring that to a lovely rolling boil. Now, I expect everybody knows what a rolling boil is. A rolling boil is a boil that cannot be stirred away. In some boils, it just gets started and you see it, but if you stir it, you don't see it anymore. Rolling boil, you cannot stir and make it stop boiling. It's going to boil no matter what. So I can turn the temperature up fairly high because we just want to get this to the point where it's a rolling boil. And hopefully it won't take too long. Butter is on the soft side, but not as soft as I would want it to be if I was making a cake or cookies. I would want it a whole lot softer. But once everything starts heating up, it'll melt. Because that's what happens to butter when you put it in. So like I said, my mother used to make these cream puffs, and they were a huge treat. Both my brothers loved them, and it was the kind of thing that she would make for special occasions, birthdays. I know I continue with the tradition of making cream puffs for special birthdays. Unfortunately, I only have 1 brother still alive, but I do make him cream puffs, and I think he appreciates it. So the butter is melting. The liquid is warming up. The French pastry chefs say use a wooden spoon. They're big on wooden spoons for when you're mixing together the choux dough. I love the word choux, C-H-O-U-X. If I tell one of my electronic devices to type in the word choux, guess how it's spelled? Right. They don't know. Even choux pastry. If I say choux pastry, it's still going to be S-H-O-E. All right. We're getting there really well. Butter is almost completely dissolved. I see steam coming up off the pan. I have the temperature on 5 out of 6, so it's fairly high. And as soon as it really is boiling, which won't be long, we're going to mix in the flour. Come on, boil, baby, boil. All right, butter is dissolved. We're just standing here patiently waiting for the boil. The first part of making choux pastry is pretty easy. You know, you've got to melt your butter in your liquid and stir in the flour really well. And then we've got 4 eggs to add. But the rest of the recipe is a little more work. Okay, steam, you can see the steam coming up. Let's see if I'm getting bubbles. Bubble, bubble, bubble. Yes, I am getting bubbles. All right, but let's just give it enough time to bubble that I can't stir it down. That's what we call a rolling boil. Right now I can stir the bubbles away. Yeah, okay. They're getting more powerful. And that steam is coming up more and more, as you can see. If I had someone to move the camera for me, I would put it right over on top of this, but I don't. So you're just going to have to trust me. That is a rolling boil. The bubbles are going crazy. So I'm going to turn this burner off. I'm going to take it and put it right here. And I'm going to take my 1 cup of flour and dump it in and then start stirring like crazy. I got to get this flour all mixed in. Put a little elbow grease. And it's going to look, oh gosh, I don't even know how to describe how it looks. It's a congealed mass of flour. Now, if you were truly a French chef, you would keep it in this pan and stir in the eggs with your wooden spoon. Well, I want to make sure the eggs are properly combined. So here's my flour paste. It does look like a paste. I'm going to put it into this bowl. And then I'm going to use my stand mixer. No, it's not a stand mixer. It's a hand mixer. Rhymes with stand, which I have to plug in. There. And one at a time, I am going to beat eggs into my flour. Mix it really well before you add the next egg. Doesn't look like paste anymore. The eggs still aren't combined as well as they need to be. So here's egg number 4. Okay. And really, really combine it. And it starts to, it still kind of looks like paste, and it's very thick, but it's also holding together nicely. The eggs are all combined. So I'm going to stop here, and it should drop, yeah, off the blades into the bowl. So let me get my little spatula and wipe those blades. Now at this point, you could refrigerate it. I think a day is about how long you can refrigerate it. You can cover it with a wet towel or a really tight fitting cover and let it sit out on your counter for a few hours until you're ready to bake. But I am going to pause the video here, and I'm going to get my baking sheet prepared. I'm going to preheat the oven. It needs to be 400. And I'm going to scrape this into a piping bag. If you don't have a piping bag, there's other ways to work with it, and we'll talk about it when I come back. So we've got the oven preheated. The choux dough is all ready, and I have a piping bag ready. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this piping bag, and I'm going to be piping balls, little cabbages, and I'm going to be piping eclair shaped, I don't know, eclairs, I guess. So let's fill the piping bag. The tip on the piping bag, well, I can't see what it is right now, but I will let you know in the comments where I post the recipe. Now, piping is not the only way to get our dough onto the baking sheet. It's my preferred way, but we can also scoop it. But let's make the shapes first, and then I'll show you with a scoop. All right. Squeeze it down good. Twist the top, get a good grip on it, and let's do a row of the round. So we're just going to use some nice pressure, squeeze, 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 and top it up. Some pressure, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. These will puff up when they bake because remember, there's 4 eggs in here, and that will certainly help them puff up. Now I made these balls, 3 inches across, perhaps. My trusty little ruler, 2.5. Let's measure them when they come out of the oven, and we'll see how much they've puffed up. And now I'm going to do a row of straight pipe. You should make the eclairs at least 4 inches long. You could do mini eclairs. It's really personal preference. You make them any way you want to. So you scoop in more dough, squeeze it down into my piping bag. All right, so let's do the long straight ones and try to make them thick. There. Not too close together, because remember, they are going to puff up in the oven. Do 2 more. Keep pushing the dough down to the bottom of the pastry bag. Kind of poke the ends up so that we don't have a point coming off there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you using a scoop. And this is a 1/2 cup scoop, like I would use to fill cupcakes, because that's what this is for. And I fill my scoop, and now I just plop that down. It's not as pretty, but you don't have to use a piping bag. And if you have a scoop, great, you can use it. If you don't have a scoop, use a measuring cup, a 1/4 cup measuring cup or a 1/2 cup measuring cup. Anyway, do whatever works for you to get the pastry onto the baking sheet. All right, I think I've got enough to put one more round one. Let's see. And then we are going to pop them in the oven. Now, these need to bake for a fairly long time because it's really important that they get thoroughly brown, not golden brown, really dark brown. It takes a while for the insides to cook all the way, and you want the inside to become almost hollow. So I'm figuring a 1/2 hour in the oven, but another important thing is you're not going to open the oven door and peek for the first at least 20 minutes, because you don't want any moisture that's built up in the oven to be lost. That won't help them rise up and puff up. So 400 degrees, about a 1/2 hour. Don't open the oven door, and we'll come back after that time and we will see how they look. So here we are, ready to go in the oven. All right, come back. Here they are, hot out of the oven. As you can see, they're really brown on the bottom. Ooh, and they are hot. They puffed up nice. The eclairs especially are probably twice the size they were before. And the round ones, are also puffed up nice. The one that I just did a scoop on, see how big it is? It's going to be, and it should be quite empty so I can fill it with cream. Okay, so I'm going to let these cool down. I'm going to put them on a cooling rack. And then I've got to check and make sure that the vanilla custard cream that I made earlier is cold enough. So once these have cooled down and I check the cream and I get that ready, we will come back and we will fill these babies with some nice custard, and then we'll show some different options for topping them. All right, so I'm going to pause again and then we'll come back to finish up. All right, we're ready to fill our cream puffs and eclairs. The vanilla custard is nice and chilled. The pastries have cooled down, and I have a bowl of some melted chocolate that I can use for the top of them to finish them, which is optional, of course, you don't have to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spoon some of the custard into a piping bag with a long nozzle tip. Now, this is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to cut off the top of, especially the round ones, and just fill them with a spoon, or cut the eclairs in half down the middle and lay in a nice filling of the custard cream. Again, if you don't have a pastry bag and you don't want to get a pastry bag and mess with doing it this way, you don't have to. But I do have a pastry bag and I do have the right size of tip. So I am going to take one. I'm going to make 3 holes, and actually, you know what I'm going to do to make the holes? I'm going to use you could use a knife. I'm going to use a palette with a point, and just to create a starting spot. And I'm going to press the end and fill it. This isn't working really well. And I think one of the reasons why it isn't working really well is there. Too much pastry came out around the nozzle. So let's try it again there. And there. Okay. I had a little trouble and I had to stop for a second and adjust the way the nozzle was fitting in this bag. So there. You want to make sure that the cream is going inside. Again, I'm going to, I make 3 holes in the bottom. And the idea is there's a lot of open air inside, and you want to fill that open air up with cream. You should definitely feel the pastry get heavier, and if the cream overflows and comes out the bottom, that's okay. I just take my palette knife and kind of wipe it off. There's 2. And now let's demonstrate filling one of the shoes, the little round cabbages. And again, I'm going to take my something pointed and make a hole in the bottom. Take my pastry bag with the long nosed tip and pipe it nice and full. And you should be able to feel it get heavier. I certainly can. Wipe off the bottom a little bit. And let's take the one that I did by scooping with the that half cup scoop. And it kind of made its own hole there on the side. See? So I'm going to pipe the cream right into that hole. Can really see it filling up. There. Isn't that nice? All right. So that's how you get your beautiful eclairs and cream puffs filled. You cut them and you use a spoon to fill them. You don't have to use this vanilla pastry cream. You could use whipped cream. And that would be delicious too. You could put in a little bit of berries. I could put, if I cut it open, I could put in a little bit of the vanilla custard cream and maybe a couple slices of strawberries, and then put the top back on, and then maybe drizzle some confectioner sugar on top. You know, there's a lot of things you can do to fancy them up, decorate them, make them into a really, really pretty dessert. So look for the recipe, of course, in the comments. Oh, wait, before I go away, I wanted to show you if you melt some chocolate, and which I had a little leftover heavy cream, and I melted some chocolate chips with it. What you can do, if it's liquid enough, and this has started to firm up, so I was going to say you could dip it. There we go. There. Dip it in chocolate, and now you've got a pretty cream puff with a chocolate topping. Or you could, maybe have a piping bag with some of this in it, or with chocolate frosting in it, and just kind of do a nice line down the top with the frosting or the chocolate melt. Again, just like with the other, the round shoes, or with these, you have all kinds of ways of decorating them and making them look like really, really classy desserts. So let your imagination run wild. Have a good time, make them pretty, make them yummy, and don't be afraid to make them. So, recipe is the first comment under this video. I welcome your comments. I welcome your questions. I hope you liked this, and I hope you would try making them. So, from Cindy's Country Kitchen, also known as Cindy's Bitchin' Kitchen, that's it for today. Everybody be well.